Hello dear student, how are you? I hope you're fine. Welcome to another class. Today we'll be talking about present continuous versus present simple, okay? The first topic of today's lesson is state verbs. Guys, state verbs are verbs that do not represent actions. Rather, they represent mental states. So they are mind-like verbs. They represent what we are feeling, what we believe, what we agree with, what we don't agree with. Things that are not necessarily actions. Let's take, for instance, the verb like. When I say that I like chocolate, and I love chocolate, by the way, I'm not acting. I'm not doing anything. I just like chocolate. So you see that these verbs, they do not represent actions. That's why they are called state verbs. They represent states of mind. Okay? And I've written them here in two different colors because even though many of you have studied English for some time now, probably you have already heard a teacher explaining to you that these verbs do not go to continuous forms. And that's quite understandable because that's what we do with more basic and with more intermediate students because we do not have much time to explain all of this. But now it's the time for you to know the truth. And the truth is that some of them can be used in continuous tenses with, of course, some considerations to be taken. Okay, you really need to take this information that's here on my board into consideration when using these guys with an ing form in a continuous tense. So you see that there are verbs that were written in blue and verbs that were written in black. Black, reddish. I don't know what I've done. Probably I mixed up the two different colors of ink. But anyway, let's get started with this. These verbs that are written in blue, they can go to the ing form in a continuous tense. Again, considerations should be taken. We're going to talk about them. The ones in black are very rarely used in continuous tenses, so you'd better avoid using them in a continuous tense. Let's repeat the verbs after me. Appreciate, attract, hate, expect, hope, like, anticipate, assume, consider, expect. Oh, I've written expect twice, my bad. Feel, find, imagine, realize. If you are more used to American spelling, you will see this verb with a Z, written with a Z instead of with an S, but both forms are correct. One is American, the other is British. Think, understand, ache, hear, see, sound, cost, have, look, weigh, measure, agree, desire, doubt, prefer, regret, mean, resemble, believe, know, own, possess, seem, notice, smell, taste, belong to. Be careful, be attentive to the use of prepositions. Some verbs require specific prepositions. Belong is one of them. We always use it together with to. Consist of, constitute, contain, differ from. So as I have already said, the ones in blue can be sometimes used in continuous tenses, differently from what you've heard during your whole experience with learning English. And the ones in black are very rarely used in continuous tenses, but let's go into the considerations. So the first one is emphasizing that a situation is temporary. These verbs here in blue, they can be used in continuous tenses when you want to emphasize that that situation is temporary. For example, Jane often stays with us, so she stays with us with a frequency basis. The kids love her. This is a particularity of the kids. They share this feeling towards Jane. They love her. Remember that this is present simple, and in a present simple sentence, we are talking about permanent situations. So they loved her yesterday, they love her today, they will love her tomorrow. This is a permanent action. That's what present simple says. But now in the second example, Jane is staying with us this week. The kids are loving having her here. I don't have any information that provides me with any understanding that the kids love Jane. No, they don't love Jane in the second sentence. They are loving her staying. Her staying is temporary, and so is their loving. They're loving having her here, but when she goes home, probably they are not going to feel anything towards her. Maybe, you never know. But in this case, we are using loving in the ing with the verb to be, so this is a continuous tense, to emphasize that this situation is temporary. So teacher, is it possible to say, I'm understanding? Yes, it is. It happens. If you're an intermediate student or a basic student, I should probably tell you not to do that, because this doesn't happen very frequently. You know, it's just when you're talking about at that specific moment something that is extremely temporary, and then you can use them with ing and a verb to be too. Okay, so we can use it with expect, we can use it with appreciate, we can use it with hate, with all of these in blue. Okay, for example, let's imagine that I love English, so I don't find English grammar difficult. I don't find it. It's a fact about me. It's a state. I don't find it difficult. I love it. But I've been studying physics lately. I've always been interested in physics. And you know, right now I'm working on analytical geometry. Man, this is so hard. I'm finding it difficult. I do not have a solid opinion about it. Maybe with more effort, I will not find it difficult. It's not a state, it's not something permanent. I'm just finding it difficult now. It's possible. In this situation, we can use find with an ing. The same way that we can use understand. Right now, I'm not understanding analytical geometry. No, I'm not understanding. I am in front of my books and I'm talking to a friend of mine and I said, no, it's impossible. I'm not understanding it. But maybe with time, as time passes, I could say, oh, I finally understand. And in that case, it's a state, not an action anymore. Okay? Be careful to this. If you're talking about situations that are temporary, you can use the verbs in blue to emphasize that in the ing form. But it's not wrong just to say that I find analytical geometry difficult, because I do find it difficult right now. So you can either use or not. Do I need to say that the usage of these verbs correctly for emphasizing a temporary situation, is it more advanced? Of course it is. That's why you're learning this right now. Okay, you haven't learned it before. Okay, I think that's okay. Number 2 now, different meanings for actions and states. So these verbs that are in blue, more precisely these ones that are written here, cost, expect, feel, fit, have, imagine, think, consider, weigh, measure, they can be used to talk about states and they can be used to talk about actions too. Look at the example. My desk measures 1 by 2 meters. That's my desk. It measures 1 by 2 meters. It's a fact about my table. I cannot change that unless I'm a carpenter, unless I can make another table or buy another one. But this one measures, it's a state. It's not, nothing is happening, okay? It's just the property of my table. But on the second example, the engineer is measuring the field. Now, measure is an action. Measure is not a state anymore. And thus, as it's an action, we can use it with ing in the continuous tense. So I could say the engineer is measuring right now, has been measuring. All of this that we are learning about state verbs, they also apply for the other verb tenses, for present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous, future perfect continuous too. So it is possible. I mean, taking these considerations, of course, talking about temporary situations. So yesterday, talking about understand. Yesterday I was in front of my books and I wasn't understanding anything until my friend called me and explained me something about it. Okay? But at that moment I wasn't understanding. It is possible to be used. Okay? But you see that these verbs, for example, expect is an interesting one. Because as a state, it can mean the same thing as think. So I could say, I think John is going to find a job. You could say, oh, I expect he's going to find a job. So that's your opinion about it. You think that he's going to find a job. You expect that he's going to find a job. You imagine that he's going to find a job. You suppose that he's going to find a job. These are all states, okay? But if you use it as an action, it means the same thing as wait. So I am expecting a letter from my friend in Italy. I'm expecting a letter from her. I'm waiting for a letter. So as a state, it means an opinion that I've got. And as an action, it means to wait for something to happen. Let's see what happens with consider. Again, if I say that I consider this wrong, that's a solid opinion that I've got. But I could say, oh, I'm considering traveling to Europe next year. So now it's not my opinion anymore. Now it's something that I have been thinking of. I'm raising awareness in myself so I can decide and make a choice whether or not to go to Europe. So I'm considering going to Europe. That's a possibility. So consider as a state, an opinion you've got. Consider as an action, it can be used in the ing form with a verb to be. You were talking about thinking, okay? Thoughts running wildly in your mind. Okay? Good. Now, the third topic of today's lesson, mental states showing uncertainty. Guys, mental states are, again, states. I've got two examples here, the verb want and the verb regret. Again, in basic courses, we teach students that they cannot do this. I'm wanting really doesn't exist in a basic level course or an intermediate level course, but as for real life, it does exist. And what is the difference then? If you use a mental state in an ing form with a verb to be, and this is a continuous tense, if you use it in a continuous tense, you are showing some kind of uncertainty. You're not sure about it. So if you say, I want to buy a car, I've got a solid opinion about it. Wow, I need to save money because I want to buy a car. But maybe I was walking and then I got too tired yesterday. And I saw somebody driving, and then I arrived home and I told my friend, oh, walking up and down the streets in the city is kind of tiring. Maybe I should buy a car, but I don't know. Cars are expensive to maintain, they pollute, I don't know. But I'm wanting to buy a car. So you see that in the second example, I'm not sure, I do not have a consolidated opinion about what I'm going to do. I'm just wanting to buy a car. I'm not sure if I want, but right now I'm wanting. This possibility, this idea is crossing my mind very frequently, so I'm wanting, okay? Another example is with regret. I regret selling my car. Oh my God, why did I do that? Why have I sold my car? I hate the fact that I was so stupid. I regret selling my car. I've got a consolidated opinion about this. But let's imagine I sold my car yesterday and now I'm facing reality of having to walk up and down the streets. And I am thinking along with myself, oh my, if I had my car right now, I would be doing something. I would be going somewhere, but I don't have it. Oh, but it's okay. Now I have a chance to exercise. And then I could tell somebody, I'm feeling bad. I think I'm regretting selling my car. So you see, in this case, I still haven't got a consolidated opinion about it. I'm just evaluating the pros and cons of something I've done, and I'm telling you that I'm considering accepting that I was wrong. That's what I'm telling you, okay? So be careful with these verbs. So mental state verbs, sometimes they work quite well in the continuous tenses when we are showing that we are not quite sure of what we are doing, okay? It shows some kind of uncertainty. 1, 2, 3, 4, performative verbs. Performative verbs, they're quite interesting verbs. You know why? When you say them, you are doing them. Really? Did you understand that? For example, when I say I run, am I running right now? No. Probably you'll never see me running. I don't like doing so. But if I say, I promise you, oops, at this moment I'm promising it. So now when I say a performative verb, I am doing what the verb says. So I admit. I am admitting. At the moment that I say that I admit, I am admitting. I advise you not to do that. At the time that I say advise, I am advising you. So that's what makes this group of verbs to be called performatives, because when you say them, you are acting. I beg you, help me out, for example. I beg you. At the time that I say I beg, I am already begging. Declare, forbid, suggest, order, permit, predict, refuse, remind, promise, guarantee, apologize, deny. They are all performative verbs. And as performative verbs, they never is a very strong word, but they are very rarely used in a continuous form. So we tend to use simple forms with them. But as every rule has its exception, we will work with deny, apologize, guarantee, and promise. These performatives here, they are commonly used in a continuous tense if you are describing a negative sentence, not with affirmative sentence, only with negative ones. So, I promise I'm gonna change. I promise I will change. Will is better to be used with promise. I promise I'll change. Okay, you're promising it now. But then if you're using it in the negative, you could say I don't promise I'm going to change, or I don't promise I will change. It's possible. But if you want to focus on the moment, you could say I'm not promising that I will change. So in the negative, you can use it in a continuous version, a continuous fashion, but only the 4 verbs that are written here on the board and in a negative sentence, never in an affirmative. Because in affirmative sentences, they always come in the simple present, not in the present continuous. And if you're not sure of what present simple or present continuous are in this case, you should definitely go back and watch the video for lesson 0. Okay? So let's brush up on what we've seen today. We've studied some state verbs. We know that they are not actions, rather they represent mind states of mind. We know that if we want to emphasize that a situation is temporary, we can use the verbs in blue in the continuous version to indicate that it's a temporary action. But we are not making a mistake if we just use them in the simple version, okay? Secondly, we saw that some verbs, they take up different meanings when used as actions and when used as states. By actions, I mean being used as an ing form, altogether with verb to be. And as a state, I mean used in the simple forms. These are the verbs. We've also studied mental states, that these verbs show some kind of uncertainty, you're not so sure of what you're doing. And at last, we've studied the performatives, and we've learned that these verbs over here, as performatives, they always come in a simple present, but these 4 last ones can be used in a continuous tense when we're dealing with a negative sentence. Okay? I hope you have liked and I hope you have understood, because that's what really counts. Don't forget, please, that there is an activity to be done at the end of each video. That's the way I have to assure you, or to make sure that you are practicing your skills. Without practice, there isn't much of what we can do. So study hard enough, do your exercises. If you've got any questions, just let me know during our weekly encounters. Okay? Kisses, bye for now.